Many years ago, I met a man, I'll call him Alec, living in a homeless shelter in Liverpool, where I was working as a volunteer cook. Alec was in his late 50s, quiet, kept to himself mostly. We got talking one afternoon, and he told me his story of how he ended up at the shelter, and it was one I was not expecting. In the 1980s, Alec had built a business making printed circuit boards. This was just before the home computer boom. I remember that era fondly. I was probably 8 or 9 and remember adverts and magazines for computers being everywhere. I think it's where my lifelong love for computer games was born. Alec's timing was perfect. He had a smooth running, proven circuit board business. He had started small, taught himself the technical skills, worked brutal hours to get the business off the ground, and now it was paying off. His business grew rapidly. He struggled to keep up with demand, and the enterprise was a massive success. Eventually, Alec was offered and accepted £5 million for the business, about 20 million in today's money, or just under $30 million. He had made it. Alec had always dreamed of living in America, so that's what he did. He sold everything, moved across the Atlantic, bought a ranch, and got married. He was living his dream. He had come from an ordinary background, no family money, no special advantages, just skill, timing, and relentless work. He'd done everything you're supposed to do. He was the poster child for how the system is supposed to work. Then his health failed him. He needed multiple heart surgeries, one after another, and other health issues would arise as a result, also requiring major operations. The medical bills piled up. Around the same time, his marriage fell apart. The ranch and a sizable chunk of his wealth went in the divorce. By his late 50s, he was back in the UK with nothing, which is where I met him. The story raises an uncomfortable question. According to everything we're told about how life works, Alec had proved himself. He'd earned his success. Are we supposed to believe that now he had nothing, he had somehow unearned it? My conversation with Alec was many years ago. It's likely he's no longer with us. But there was something about his story that would come back to me every now and then, something difficult to pinpoint. Part of it was the contradiction. This wasn't someone who'd made obviously bad choices. He hadn't gambled his wealth away or burned through the money on stupid investments. He got sick. His body and marriage failed him at exactly the wrong time, in exactly the wrong country, with exactly the wrong insurance situation. And that was good enough to erase everything. But what lingers for me is how we judge people based on where they end up. When Alec was running a successful business and living on a ranch, people would have looked at him and thought, there's someone who's a winner. There's someone who's got it figured out. Someone who worked hard and earned his success. Someone who deserves what he has. And now he's in a homeless shelter, with his world in a bag. And if you didn't know his past, you'd probably assumed he'd made bad choices, or lacked discipline, or was somehow responsible for his circumstances. That's just how we think about people in shelters. We assume they must deserve to be there in some way. Which raises an uncomfortable question. Did this man deserve his success when he had it? And if so, does he now deserve his homelessness? Did he stop being virtuous when his health failed? Did success prove his merit, and does failure now prove his lack of it? Something about that logic feels deeply wrong. Philosopher Michael Sandel has spent much time thinking about exactly this kind of question. Sandel teaches at Harvard and wrote a book called The Tyranny of Merit, which explores how society judges success and failure and what that judgment does to us. The book is specifically about meritocracy, which is the idea that people should rise or fall based on their talent and hard work. In a meritocratic society, success is supposed to be earned. You get ahead because you're smart or skilled or dedicated, not because of who your parents are or because you inherited wealth or because of random luck. You deserve what you get because you earned it through merit. And that sounds pretty good, right? It sounds fair and noble. It sounds like the kind of society we'd want to live in. But Sandel argues that meritocracy, even when it works exactly as intended, creates something toxic. Not because it fails to give people what they deserve, but because the entire concept of deserving things based on success is corrosive. It does something to how we see ourselves and each other. It makes winners feel they've earned everything they have, and it makes losers feel they've earned their failure. He calls this the tyranny of merit. The idea that meritocracy doesn't just sort people into winners and losers, it makes that sorting feel morally justified. It tells winners they deserve their success, which creates hubris, and it tells losers they deserve their failure, which creates shame. Consider the winners, the people who succeed in the meritocratic system. When we succeed at something, we naturally want to believe we earned it. And in a meritocracy, that belief gets turbocharged. It's not just that we worked hard, it's that we worked harder than other people. It's not just that we're skilled, it's that we're more talented than others. And it's not just that we're smart, it's that we're more intelligent than those around us. Our success becomes proof of our virtue. Sandel calls this the rhetoric of rising. It's this cultural message that says, you can make it if you try. You can be anything you want to be. Nothing is impossible. The American dream, basically. Work hard, play by the rules, and you will succeed. And when you do succeed, that message gets internalized. Of course you succeeded. You worked hard. You were smart about it. You made good choices. You earned this. You deserve it. The problem is what that implies about everyone else. If success proves virtue, if doing well means you worked harder and were smarter, then what does failure say? If you earned your success through merit, doesn't that mean other people earned their failure through lack of it? Sandel argues that meritocracy creates this insidious form of self-satisfaction among winners. Not just happiness at succeeding, but a moral conviction that they deserve their position, that they're fundamentally better, more hard-working, more disciplined, more talented than people who didn't make it. And here's the dark part. Meritocracy makes that attitude feel justified. You're not being arrogant or unfair, you're just recognizing reality. The system worked. Merit was rewarded. The people at the top earned their place, and the people at the bottom, well, they had the same opportunities, didn't they? Sandel mentions a study where researchers surveyed college-educated people in the US and Europe, asking how they felt about various disadvantaged groups: obese people, gay people, ethnic and religious minorities. And across countries, the group that college graduates looked down on most was people without college degrees. What stands out is that while respondents felt at least some embarrassment about their other prejudices, they felt proud of looking down on the poorly educated. Because in a meritocracy, that's not prejudice. It's just accurate assessment of merit. Those people didn't work hard enough to get educated, so of course they ended up where they ended up. Now consider what meritocracy does to people who don't succeed. If the system says you can make it if you try, if the message is that success is available to anyone with enough talent and work ethic, then what does it mean when you don't make it? It means you failed because of you, because you didn't work hard enough, or weren't smart enough, or lacked discipline. Your failure is your fault. You had the same opportunities as everyone else, and you came up short. You're the problem. Sandel points out this brutal piece of logic. When that culture tells you that anything is achievable if you just try hard enough, your failure to achieve becomes evidence of personal inadequacy. And this is where meritocracy becomes genuinely cruel. It's not just that you're poor or struggling or didn't get the job you wanted. It's that your circumstances are treated as a moral verdict on who you are as a person. Society looked at your merit and found it wanting. You don't deserve better because if you did, you'd have it. Think about how we talk about people in poverty. We talk about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. We ask why they don't just get a better job, get more education, or work harder. The underlying assumption is that poverty is a personal failing. If you were more disciplined, smarter, harder working, if you had more merit, you wouldn't be in that situation. Sandel argues that this creates not just material inequality, but moral inequality. The rich aren't just wealthier, they're better people, more virtuous, more deserving. And the poor aren't just poorer, they're morally deficient, less hard-working, less deserving. The rhetoric of rising compounds this, because if everyone can make it if they try, then anyone who didn't make it must not have tried hard enough. The system absolves itself by blaming the individual. Here's what makes all of this especially strange. We know success and failure aren't purely about merit. We know luck plays a massive role. Being born into a wealthy family is luck. Being born with certain cognitive abilities is luck. Being born in a time and place where your particular skills happen to be valuable, that's luck too. Alec had incredible timing with his circuit board business. The home computer boom happened to be exploding right when he had the skills to capitalize on it. That's not pure merit. That's being in the right place at the right time with the right abilities. And on the flip side, getting sick is bad luck. Having your body fail you at the exact moment you're living your dream is catastrophically unlucky. Needing expensive medical care in a country with a brutal healthcare system, that's bad luck compounded by bad luck. But meritocracy doesn't really allow space for luck, or rather, it treats luck as something successful people earn somehow. We talk about people making their own luck, as if randomly being born with certain advantages is actually a form of merit. Sandel points out that even if we could create a perfectly fair meritocracy, even if we somehow eliminated all the unfair advantages of wealth and class and geography and gave everyone a truly equal starting line, it would still be deeply unjust. Because the country you're born in, the body you're born into, your family environment, the opportunities around you, none of that is earned. It's just a genetic and historical lottery. We don't earn being raised by a loving, supportive family or caregivers. We don't earn genetic advantages. We don't earn living in a peaceful, stable, safe country. We don't earn having a body that doesn't fail on us in catastrophic ways. These things just happen to us. But meritocracy treats all of this as if we earned it, as if our success is purely the result of our choices and efforts. And that allows successful people to believe they deserve everything they have, and allows us all to believe unsuccessful people deserve their suffering. So if meritocracy is fundamentally flawed, if it creates hubris in winners and shame in losers, if it ignores the role of luck, if it treats outcomes as moral verdicts, what's the alternative? Sandel proposes something he calls contributive justice. And the basic idea is this. Instead of asking, what do people deserve based on their talents and efforts, we should ask, what contributions do people make to the common good? The difference is subtle but important. Meritocracy says your wealth is tied to your market value, what you can earn, what credentials you have, how high you've climbed. Contributive justice says your worth is tied to whether your work actually matters to other people, whether it contributes to the functioning of society, whether it helps others, whether it's genuinely needed. Think about it. During the pandemic, we suddenly realised which jobs were actually essential. Nurses, delivery drivers, grocery store workers, sanitation workers, people who keep society running. And yet most of those jobs don't pay particularly well. They don't require elite credentials. They're not at the top of our hierarchy of esteem. Meanwhile, plenty of highly credentialed, well-paid jobs arguably contribute very little to the common good. Not all of them, of course. But meritocracy doesn't distinguish between a software engineer solving genuine problems and one designing algorithms to keep people scrolling longer on social media. It just sees prestigious degree, high salary, therefore high merit. Sandel argues for flipping that script. Instead of letting the market determine whose work has value, we should think collectively about what contributions we actually need. And then we should recognise those contributions with dignity and respect, not just money, but genuine social esteem. This means dismantling what he called the hierarchy of esteem around education. We've built this system where a college degree is treated as the only respectable path, where people without degrees are looked down on as having failed somehow. But learning to be a plumber or electrician or dental hygienist is a valuable contribution to society. They're jobs requiring genuine skill. They're necessary. Why do we treat them as lesser? Sandel points out that the problem isn't just about money, though fair wages obviously matter. It's about recognition. It's about dignity. People need to feel that what they do matters, that their work is valued, that they're contributing something worthwhile. And meritocracy has stripped that away from millions of people whose work is genuinely valuable but doesn't come with fancy credentials. He also suggests we need more humility about success. One of his more provocative ideas: make college admissions above a basic competency threshold random. Use a lottery system, because the current system makes students who get into elite schools believe they fully earned their spot, that they deserve it more than everyone else. A lottery would inject humility, remind people that luck plays a huge role, that there but for the grace of God go I. But contributive justice is easier to describe than to implement. How exactly do we convince society to value different kinds of work? How do we change cultural attitudes that have been building for decades? Sandel doesn't have all of the answers. His proposals are more sketches than detailed blueprints. But maybe that's okay. Maybe the point isn't to have the perfect solution ready to go. Maybe the point is just to start thinking differently, to stop treating market outcomes as moral judgments, to stop assuming successful people deserve everything they have and unsuccessful people deserve their suffering. So let's go back to Alec in the shelter. Here's what meritocracy can't explain: why the same qualities that made him successful, his work ethic, his technical skills, his business acumen, didn't protect him when his body failed. The meritocratic logic says these virtues should have insulated him from catastrophe, but they didn't, because they were never magic talismans against bad luck. When he was successful, when he'd built his business and sold it for millions, when he was living on his ranch in America, was that proof of his merit? Did he deserve that success? According to meritocratic logic, absolutely. He worked hard, acquired valuable skills, built something people needed. He earned it. But what about now? Does he deserve to be homeless? Did his heart failing make him less virtuous? Did the medical bills prove he lacked merit? Did losing everything in a divorce mean he was actually less deserving all along? Clearly not. Something else is going on. Yes, personal responsibility exists. Of course, some people work harder than others. Some people make better choices than others. There are genuinely lazy people in the world who have opportunities and squander them. But here's the problem with meritocracy: it can't tell the difference. When meritocracy looks at two people in the same situation, both employed, both struggling, both at the bottom of the economic ladder, it sees two failures. It doesn't distinguish between the person who never tried and the person who tried everything and got unlucky. It just sees the outcome and assumes both people equally deserve to end up there. What happened to Alec wasn't exceptional. It's the normal operation of chance in human life. The exceptional part is that we've built a system that interprets this randomness as moral judgment. Meritocracy doesn't care about nuance. It just sees homeless person equals failure equals lack of merit. That's what makes the system so cruel. It lumps the hard-working but unlucky together with the genuinely lazy, and it judges them all the same. Your circumstances become a moral verdict regardless of how you got there. And that people make assumptions about people struggling to get by, that have nothing to do with who they actually are or what they actually did. But here's what struck me about Alec and other people like him. People don't know his story. When they see him in the shelter, they don't see successful entrepreneur destroyed by health crisis. They see someone in the shelter and they make assumptions about his choices, his discipline, his character. They assume at some level that he must deserve to be there, that if he were more capable, smarter or harder working, more deserving, he would have figured a way out. And that's what Sandel is highlighting. Meritocracy doesn't just sort people, it creates a moral hierarchy that we internalize. Success proves virtue, failure proves vice, and that makes us cruel to people when life deals them a bad hand. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of us are closer to that shelter than we'd like to think. Most of us are one major health crisis away from financial catastrophe, one bad divorce, one economic recession that wipes out our industry, one child born with a rare condition, one random bit of terrible timing, and suddenly the life we'd built could be gone. Life isn't actually a meritocracy, no matter how much we pretend it is. Sometimes you do everything correctly and still lose. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. Meritocracy asks us to believe that wherever people end up is basically where they deserve to be, that success and failure are moral categories, that if you're doing well, you earned it, and if you're not, you have only yourself to blame. But Alec didn't become less deserving when his heart failed. He didn't stop being the same person who worked hard and built a successful business. His worth as a human being didn't change. What changed was his luck. There's a reason we keep believing in meritocracy, even when the evidence says otherwise. It makes us feel safer. If success comes from hard work and talent, then we're in control. And as long as we do the right things, we'll be okay. We're not vulnerable to random bad luck. We're not at the mercy of things we can't predict or prevent. But Alec's story shows that's not how it works. Sometimes everything breaks despite your best efforts. And when we see that happen to other people, meritocracy gives us an out. We can tell ourselves that they must have done something wrong, which means we don't have to worry it could happen to us. This might be meritocracy's worst effect, not just that it makes winners arrogant or losers ashamed, but that it lets us ignore each other's suffering. If everyone gets what they deserve, then your problems aren't my responsibility, you're on your own. But we're not actually on our own. We're all closer to disaster than we think. One health crisis, one redundancy, one unforeseen accident. The gap between doing fine and losing everything can be frighteningly small. But that's where we need to start, not with some perfect new system, but just seeing each other differently. Less assuming people deserve where they ended up, more wondering how they got there. Less confidence that we earned everything we have, more awareness of how much was luck. And it means actually valuing work that matters, not just work that pays well or requires credentials. It means treating people with respect regardless of their job title or education. It means that remembering someone in the shelter isn't fundamentally different from us. Because sometimes you do everything right and still end up losing everything. And sometimes you get lucky and end up on a ranch. And the difference between those two things might be smaller than we want to believe.